Now the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to pretty much coat the whole area with full strength Elmer's white glue. Spread it on pretty liberally. And I'll take just a wet, cheap paintbrush and spread it out. You don't have to be real perfect with this. It just needs to be spread out over all the area that you want covered with the various types of ground foam. I think I'll just bring it up to about there for right now, and that way we can handle this section with no problems. Now, I have handy some sand. I like it for a dirt color. You can use sifted dirt if you want to. I just happen to have this handy. I've got some Scenic Express heavier ground foam. I like their stuff because it does really look realistic. And then I've got some Woodland Scenics blended turf. So all we need to do is just go ahead and start sprinkling this over the areas where we want our ground covered. And I'm not covering 100%. I'm leaving open areas because I'm going to vary the different ground foams. So there you can see is a first coat of blended turf. You can see that I have not covered the entire areas. You still see some white glue, and we're going to use the other two, the sand and the Scenic Express stuff, to kind of finish that off. I'll try a little bit of this dirt sand kind of a combination. Again, not covering the whole area, just covering certain spots. Don't think you need to use a lot of that stuff. You want it to kind of vary, because then it picks up the different contours of the terrain you're working on. And for my third coat, third layer, I'm going to use some of this Scenic Express stuff. It's called Green Adirondack. And what you'll see is that it's a little bit thicker. I use a spoon to kind of tap that stuff out. You can also use your hand too, if you wish, because especially when we're working on a larger area like this. Don't worry about excess and things like that. We'll take care of that after a little bit. And also the parts that are rolling down the hill next to the track, don't worry about that. We'll take care of that a little bit later too. Okay, I think that's just about got what we need to accomplish here. Now the one thing that you're going to find that works well, again, because this is a thicker kind of a foliage, almost looks like small bushes. I take my brush that was wet, and if I have an area that doesn't quite look right, I can actually move this stuff around the way that I want it, like that. Now the other thing that we're going to do to kind of do a better seal on this heavier type material, we're going to give it an overspray. Now this overspray that I use, I mix up some 25% white glue. So I just take 3 parts water, 1 part glue, mix it up. I like to use these condiment bottles for my mixing and such, and you can get these off Amazon. They're cheap. Put a drop or two of dish detergent like Dawn or Ajax or whatever it is, liquid soap to help the water break up, and then you want to spray this on. Now don't use a heavy spray bottle like a Windex bottle. You need to use a fine spray bottle, like here's the Woodland Scenics spray bottle. Or what I found is, because again they're much less expensive, on Amazon just look up fine spray bottles and you can pick these up. They're very, very inexpensive. So we'll go ahead and fill this guy up with our glue mixture. And then we can go ahead and just put a very light spray of this glue mixture over the areas. And make sure I'm using the spray. There she is. Just go ahead, put a little bit on there. That's going to anchor those larger pieces for us. So try not to move your material around too much. And that's all there is to it. We're going to let this stuff set up. And I'm going to finish off the rest of the hill here. Now here you can see our area with the 3 layers on it. And you can see that it is beginning to look a little bit more realistic. So we'll let that just set up for a while, because the next step is we need to take a vacuum and we need to vacuum off the excess scenic material. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this small vacuum to pick up the excess before we start working with the static grass. There, now we've picked up all of our excess static ground cover, so that now when I put on the static grass and we vacuum that, which we need to do because we are going to do the static grass in different layers, so we'll do that next. Now, the static grass applicator that I found best, for my use anyway, is the Woodland Scenics Static King. Now, you can run it off of a battery, but I initially did that, and now I found out that using the wall wart 12 volt power source is much better. The difference is like night and day. Couple things. You'll notice inside, I don't know if you can see that or not, but I have a couple of nuts, 1/4 or 3/8 inch nuts. I keep those in there to keep the static grass stirred up so it goes through the grate much better. Now what we're going to start off with, I'm using some straw colored, like dead grass if you would, and this of course will set us up with a very light first layer as that dead grass that lies underneath the newer growing grass. Now one of the things I like to do is, depending on the application, and this is where you have to practice on your own, but I would start with full strength white glue first. We'll put down this glue in the areas where I know I want the static grass to be. Sometimes you'll find, depending on the surface that you're working with, you may also just want to use a mix of 50-50 glue. And I'll show you later how I'll use both. I'm going to start with the full strength, and then to add height of the individual stalks of grass and such, I'll show you how we're going to use some 50-50. So as you can see, I've just really put the stuff down in a random pattern so that I can kind of grow my grass in the different areas. Now what we'll do is we'll use this static grass applicator, and of course what we have to do is we have to ground the static. So I like to just use a straight pin. You can use anything you want. You can even just touch the end of the metal here. They also make this little stand that you can put up there, and it works fine. I find that it has a tendency to get in the way. So just go ahead and put your ground in close by where you're going to be doing the static. Turn your machine on and shake. Now don't try and cover or make it look thick, because what you need to do is put this static out there in layers. Try to keep it fairly close to the surface, but don't touch the surface. You're going to get glue all over the bottom of your applicator. Okay, I think that's about got it. And that coat, that first layer of brown. And you can see it doesn't look like it's covered very much, but we're going to build that up. And don't worry about the glue showing like that, because remember, that's going to settle down and it's going to dry out, and it's going to be covered with the other layers, the other colors. Now, I'm going to go ahead and vacuum up some of that excess. And the vacuum also will help that static grass to stand tall. Make sure you don't touch the tip of your vacuum to the actual surface. Now, because we still have some glue showing, I don't have to apply more glue at this time. I can go ahead and pick out what green colors I want to work with. And you got a lot to choose from. You know, you've got bright greens and light greens, and so you want to vary these different colors also. You'll notice up against the backdrop it's a fairly bright green. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a green that is very bright and matches that pretty good. We'll put down a little bit of this bright green, as I said, up against the back of the wall here. Okay, now just let that set up a little bit, and as soon as that sets up, just a couple minutes here, I'm going to go ahead and vacuum that off. Now, one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to add another layer on there, and it's going to be a little bit darker and a little bit longer grass. So what I need to do, even though I've got this base of glue there, that's fine. A lot of the new, darker, longer grass will stick to that. But I also want to start building on top of like a lot of this dead grass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a real light spray, and I have this mixed up. You can either use the Woodland Scenic spray. This happens to be my own mixture here. It's about that 25% mix. So if you want to go ahead and use that, I'm just going to spray a little bit on there. Like that. Now what you have to be careful with that is, remember that wherever there's glue, that static grass is going to stick. So you notice I didn't saturate the area. I just primarily directed the spray at these areas. If I pick up some grass out here, that's fine. It'll work. Okay, so I'm just going to go back over this now again with the darker. hear the nuts rattling around in there. That, of course, is loosening the bulky grass. And I like to just run that static applicator over the surface again. Not much grass is coming out. It's just a pull up the grass that's been laid down. Okay, and we'll let that set for just a minute or two, and then I'll go ahead and I'll vacuum that, bring the stalks up, and get rid of the excess. Now I vacuumed that off, and you can see, you know, with the grass, it's standing up pretty good, pretty nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that pretty much set up and dry overnight. Then I'll go back and we'll take a look at it and see if we want to add more. Remember, it takes multiple layers and you'll be working over time. Add a few bushes, some old twigs, and it doesn't look too bad.